there was a king, full of wisdom, noble, kind, yet powerful. He ruled a kingdom that was prosperous, a mining industry that thrived the economy, a stalwart battalion that repels all armies, and a stewardess that manages the kingdom's wealth and resources. The king had a son named Edran, Sir Edran. He fought bravely many battles, others redeemed him as a beacon of valor, and a champion of the greatest battle, the Sacred Crusade. The lesser saw him as a boastful man that faked his achievements. Sir Edran would always go to the front lines, he thirsts for battle as if it were oxygen that pumped him full of life. Day after day, battle after battle, he grew more and more tiresome of winning and conquering kingdoms and their plunder. His father knew this and tried his best to shield his son from his own frustrations. One day, the world around them quaked from a legend that was once thought to be nothing more than a myth, an entity that lays dormant in an ancient dungeon plagued with mystery. The king commands his son to approach his chambers, indeed his son cometh to his father's quarters.
Father, why have you requested me at such an inopportune time?
His father looked sternly into his eyes, something his son has never seen his father do.
My son, I request you gather the strongest warriors and rally at the front gate immediately.
Father?
His father simply closed his eyes and pointed to the exit of his chambers. His son, refusing to disobey, left at once and gathered the strongest warriors and stationed themselves at the front gate. Momentarily, his father revealed himself before his son and his men.
Soldiers! Today you will journey to the ancient cavern located 47 miles due southeast from here and vanquish the foe that shakes the very lands itself. Failure isn't an option. Some of you may not come back alive, some of you may not wish to continue upon returning. But I say this with full confidence. You will win and you will bring peace to this land once more. For the glory of Vexadryn.
All warriors raised their arms in full support of their majesty's speech, all except for his son who is fatigued of the pedantics of war. His son marches on forth with the vanguard and they sojourn to the cavern of mystery. Upon arrival, there were glowing runes that sparked curiosity, as well as consternation. Sir Edran asked the stewardess for guidance on the runes. She looks and studies the runes intently and presses them in a certain order and the entrance is revealed. They all reveled at her brilliance and began to travail into the inner sanctum. The ancient cavern reeked of decay, its obsidian walls slick with the condensation of forgotten eons. A crimson river snaked through the fractured stone, littered with shattered bones and fragments of tarnished steel. The only light emanated from a swirling purple miasma that pulsed with a sentient malevolence, casting eerie shadows across the broken floor. Each and every room had some sort of trap that was guised into the walls, the floors, even the ceilings. Some warriors fell victim to some of the traps, none died but were injured. Their sense of unease grew more and more as there were no monsters present. A monolith bare an inscription in an unknown language. Sir Edran turned once again to the stewardess to decipher its meaning. Once deciphered, the inscription says, "A vengeful man turned spirit. Righteousness. Twisted into corruption. Upon self-reflection. Doth the eye see? Only your knees will the truth set you free." Everyone looked at each other jarred and confused at the monolith.
Stewardess. How shall we proceed?
She stood there puzzled, but before she could answer, the wall opened itself behind the monolith. Sir Edran took to the front in caution for what may lurk ahead. He led the vanguard down a spiral staircase where the walls were glistening in crystallized light fixtures illuminating the descent downward. At the precipice of the descent lies a ruin of mystery and disaster. The walls were etched with the history of men, the good, the bad, and everything else in great, immaculate detail. A quick whistling sound fizzed by and struck one of the warriors. He was pronounced dead on the spot. Multiple traps seemed to spring all at once and some of the soldiers lost their sanity and began to attack one another. Sir Edran tried to beseech them to stop but lost his composure and ultimately laid them to rest. Sir Edran and the stewardess only remain, until Sir Edran notices a gaping wound in her navel region and succumbs to hemorrhaging. He holds her lifeless body in his arms and cradles her. He turns to the mural and realizes he is alone with his deceased brethren laying at his feet. Skeletons arose from the crypts, some resembling the kings of past and their respective shields, those that swore their life to protect the throne at any cost. Sir Edran lay down the stewardess and drew his sword and positioned it at the undead horde among him. An onslaught between an anointed champion battling with those that have ascended the throne. After an overlong battle, all his foes were scattered and unmoving. He screamed to the top of his lungs, for he yearned for someone to best him and grant him release. At the heart of the ruin knelt Sir Edran, once a beacon of valor and anointed champion of the sacred crusade. Blood dripped from deep gashes in his weathered armor, pooling beneath his trembling form. His sword, now dulled and splintered, lay discarded beside the hollow-eyed remains of his comrades. He clutched his side, barely suppressing the ragged breaths that betrayed his waning strength. Whispers of the past lingered forevermore and appeared above him. Above him loomed the entity, an eldritch god whose presence suffocated the cavern. It was neither flesh nor shadow but a roiling storm of anguish incarnate. Purple tendrils of energy crackled and writhed around its formless body. Only its grimace, a rictus smile stretched wide beneath eyes blazing with torment, pierced the darkness. Those eyes locked onto Edran, promising ruin and revelation in equal measure.
You sought absolution in fire and blood.
The entity hissed, its voice a cacophony of suffering.
But you are nothing but a supplicant kneeling before the weight of your sins.
Edran's lips cracked as he spoke, voice hoarse and defiant.
I fought for my kingdom, for the light's eternal glory. I did not falter.
Lies!
The entity thundered, the cavern trembling with its wrath.
You were the first to turn your sword upon your kin, when doubt gnawed at your heart. You slaughtered those who questioned your crusade, not for justice, but to bury your own cowardice. 'Tis this not dishonor before a crusade.
But my men attacked us. I had to respond.
Foolishness. Look carefully at the wounds that betwixt the flesh.
Edran's vision blurred, not from pain but from the crushing truth of the words. Memories, long suppressed, resurfaced, faces twisted in terror, screams silenced by his sword. His justification had always been duty, yet now that fragile defense crumbled. Desperate to banish the rising guilt, he grasped the shattered hilt of his sword and forced himself to his feet.
I will not be judged by a monstrosity born of despair.
He roared, defying the agony that racked his body. The entity's grimace widened, a vortex of shadow and ruin swirling around it. It whispered with malefic glee.
Then let your crusade be eternal.
A tendril of searing purple energy lashed out, piercing Edran's chest. He gasped as cold fire coursed through his veins, unraveling his flesh and soul. The cavern echoed with his screams as his body disintegrated into ash, but his consciousness lingered, bound to the void. When the storm subsided, the entity hovered in solemn triumph. Edran's specter knelt before it, his form flickering with anguish and spectral chains binding his limbs. The god of despair had claimed another servant. And so it was that the dishonored knight became the vanguard of an eternal crusade, one not waged for justice, but for agony without end.